I remember the first time I opened Arc in 2023, and its onboarding alone made a lasting impression on me. Fast forward to today, and Arc is still my browser of choice. Its user experience, the detailed micro interactions, and its personalization really made me fall in love with it. For over 2 decades, web browsers barely evolved. Chrome and Safari were really the two dominant browsers for the longest time, with Chrome dominating a 67% market share. But it didn't do so because it was innovative, but because it was fine. It was just good enough. And because of that, we accepted endless tabs as normal. We lived with the digital equivalent of having 50 books open on our desk at once. And then Arc arrived, and suddenly the most used piece of software on our computers didn't have to feel like digital chaos anymore. So how did the browser company, the company behind Arc and most recently Dia, make such a huge impact on the browser industry? Let's take a quick look at the co-founder and CEO of the browser company, Josh Miller's background. Miller was studying sociology at Princeton, fascinated by how technology could build meaningful human connections. As a junior, he co-founded Branch Media, sold it to Facebook for $15 million, and then became a product manager there. But then he made an extraordinary decision. He left Silicon Valley to become the White House's first ever director of product under President Obama at 24 years old, where he created the first official government chatbot that Obama personally responded to messages on. After government service, Miller joined Thrive Capital as an investor from 2017 to 2020. But it was during this time that he experienced what he calls his browser epiphany, where he realized that the browser had become the new operating system while barely evolving from beyond its 1990s origins. Miller watched his wife living entirely inside of Chrome and his 6-year-old niece doing schoolwork in web applications. Miller realized that we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of how do we make browsers more faster and secure, he asked, what if we started from scratch? What would browsing feel like if we designed it today? This is first principles thinking at its finest. Most companies optimize existing solutions. Arc questioned the fundamental assumptions. Why do tabs have to be horizontal? Why can't my browser feel like home? Why should I be a passive consumer instead of an active participant? The browser company didn't just improve browsing, they reimagined what browsers could be. This demonstrates a powerful framework coined by Kunal Shah, an entrepreneur from India, called the Delta 4 framework. It states that for a product to achieve lasting success, it must improve the efficiency of a user's task by at least 4 points on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to existing solutions, making the new behavior so much better that users are unlikely to revert to the old way. Speaking for myself, and I'm sure many others here, even though I know that Arc will no longer get any further updates, I still will not be going back to using Chrome because of how much value Arc has provided me. That is a mark of true innovation. Now you might think, how could a tiny startup compete with Google? But here's what big companies miss. Resources and distribution don't automatically create innovation. In fact, they often prevent it. Google has thousands of engineers, billions in revenue, and global distribution, but they also have legacy code and the pressure to not disrupt their advertising business. When your revenue model depends on people spending more time browsing and seeing more ads, you're not incentivized to make browsing more efficient. Apple's Safari was similarly constrained, designed primarily to serve iOS ecosystem lock-in rather than browsing innovation, and Microsoft's Edge was playing catch-up, not setting direction. This is Clayton Christensen's innovator's dilemma playing out in real time. Established companies optimize existing solutions. Disruptors question fundamental assumptions. And with this, the browser company had something valuable: speed, flexibility, and the freedom to do something completely different. They assembled what Josh Miller called his dream team. He first reunited with Branch co-founder Harsh Agrawal, recruited Google Chrome alumni, ex-Tesla designers, and former Instagram engineers, all united by the belief that browsers deserve the same design attention as beloved consumer products. They focus on emotional impact over pure functionality. The browser company had raised $128 million across multiple rounds, and in the latest Series B in 2024, raised $50 million at a $550 million valuation. Here's what Arc understood that every other business missed. Technology is emotional. How software makes you feel matters as much as what it does. This is a personal design philosophy of mine, and Arc mastered it. With limited resources, every feature had to justify its existence. They couldn't build everything, so they had to build the right things brilliantly. Every interaction in Arc was crafted with intention. The way tabs gently slide into the sidebar, how the music notes animate when a song is playing, the gentle gradients that make your browser feel uniquely yours. These aren't just aesthetic choices, they are emotional design choices. As I mentioned, this reflects a design philosophy that I personally love. Software should be designed for users' feelings, not just user tasks. Arc understood that how you feel while browsing affects everything from your productivity, creativeness, and your stress levels. Miller wanted Arc to feel more like a product from Nintendo or Disney than from a browser vendor. This wasn't about making browsers childish, it was about making them joyful. While Chrome treats you like a consumer, Arc treats you like a creator, and you feel that difference in every click. Let me show you how Arc's philosophy translated into features that fundamentally changed how browsing works. First, spaces. Imagine that you have completely separate browsing environments, different themes, different logins, different tabs that you can switch between instantly. Traditional browsers assume you're one-dimensional. WorkU and WeekendU share the same digital space, creating cognitive chaos. Arc recognized that we're complex humans that deserve different environments. This isn't just organization, it's psychology. When I switch to my creative space with its warm gradient and curated bookmarks that I have personally set, my brain shifts into a different mode. The environment shapes the behavior. Arc's tab management is equally great. Unpinned tabs automatically disappear after 12 to 24 hours unless you deliberately pin them. This sounds terrifying to traditional browser users, but it's liberating. It forces you to decide, is this worth keeping? The browser becomes a partner in your attention management, not an enabler in digital hoarding. But my personal favorite feature is peeks. Hover over any link, hit shift-click, and you get a quick preview without opening a full tab. This solves a fundamental browsing problem. Instead of accumulating 17 different tabs just to check out some article if it's worth reading, peeks let you stay organized while staying curious. It's the kind of thoughtful solution that makes you wonder why no one thought of it before. These aren't just features, they're solutions to problems we didn't even realize we had. Here's how you really know how much Arc succeeded. Everyone started copying them. Within months of Arc's public release, the entire browser ecosystem began shifting. Microsoft Edge added vertical tabs, dozens of Chrome extensions emerged trying to replicate Arc features like Archify, SideTab Pro, and SideSpace, and Firefox extensions like Sideberry gained massive popularity. Opera enhanced their vertical tab implementations and began experimenting with workspace concepts. The entire industry began reconsidering assumptions that had gone unchallenged for decades. Suddenly, browsers were innovative again. Then came the next generation, Zen Browser as the Arc for everyone, Comet by Perplexity with AI native search, and Opera's agentic browser operator. Arc didn't just create a product, it created a category. This was the mark of a tech wave, not just building something better, but inspiring an entire industry to raise its standards. Arc proved that radical browser innovation was both possible and desirable. But here's where the story takes a controversial turn. In December 2024, the browser company announced that they were essentially abandoning Arc to focus on Dia, their AI-first browser for mainstream users. The numbers told a complex story. Arc had achieved remarkable influence and built a passionate community of 200,000 plus users, but only 5.52% of users utilize multiple spaces, one of Arc's signature features. Miller talked about the novelty tax, how Arc's radical differences prevented mass adoption. The browser company says they optimize for feelings, but ultimately, metrics like the 5.52% usage drove their decision to pivot. But here's what frustrates me. Arc had 200,000 passionate users who became what Miller called fanatics. They weren't just users, they were advocates and people who genuinely loved their browser experience for the first time in decades. The browser company chose potential scale and satisfying investors over existing users. They abandoned users who had become fanatics to chase users who might just be merely satisfied. I get that monetizing Arc looked challenging, but there were paths. enterprise sales, educational licenses, and premium subscriptions. Sometimes serving your core audience well is more valuable than chasing everyone. But here's what the browser company did get right that will outlast their business decisions. They proved that software can have soul. Those micro interactions, those subtle animations, and that attention to detail, they showed that tools we use every day don't have to feel industrial. Arc made browsing personal again. Your software could reflect your personality, support your workflow, and adapt to your needs. It wasn't just functional, it was yours. Even with its Windows version having bugs and missing features, Arc demonstrated that we deserved better from our most used software. It raised our expectations permanently. Arc reimagined browsing by treating users as creative participants rather than passive consumers. It transformed the browser from a window to the internet into a home within it. The browser company may have moved on, but Arc's influence is permanent. It proved that radical innovation was possible, that users craved thoughtful design, and that sometimes the biggest change comes from the smallest teams. In a world of good software, Arc dared to be great. And once you've experienced great, it's impossible to go back to merely good enough.